you. My name is Eunice Weveti, working in the Center for Environmental Governance and Climate Change here at Kenya School of Government. This is just to build up on what we have been discussing since morning. I think we have discussed quite a bit of this. It was also part of the recap. But just to summarize what we have been doing since day one, this being the fourth day. First day, if you remember, we had the opening ceremony and so on and so forth. We had a welcoming remark from the Director General, Kenya School of Government, Professor Noura Mohammed, who emphasized that the summit was not just another policy dialogue, but a decisive step towards concrete climate action. And from that session, he highlighted Kenya's leadership in environmental governance and its role in shaping Africa's pathway to COP30 in Belém. And we also had another session from Governor Wilbur Wottichilo of Vihiga County. In his keynote address, he stressed that climate change must be mainstreamed into all levels of governance, planning and budgeting. He also called for the integration of geographic information systems in county planning, strengthening climate finance mechanisms, and also expounded on capacity building for both policymakers and communities. The governor also noted significant achievements in the county level, such as the establishment of county climate change funds. Remember, he also talked about ward climate change planning committees, and the discussion has been on and on around that, on how the youth can also be actively engaged in making decisions, beginning from that very level, at the grassroots level. Though he also identified persistent gaps in coordination, financing, and monitoring frameworks. So that was about day one, which was about policy alignment and institutional climate governance. Then we had the first plenary, which was themed Institutionalizing Climate Governance in Kenya, moderated by Dr. Kamakia. So it convened experts from KIPRA, GAF, the African Union, Nairobi Rivers Commission, AFDB, youth organizations, and others. And the discussions underscored that Kenya's progress in policy development must now translate to measurable local outcomes. That particular panel emphasized that the urgent need to mobilize private capital for climate adaptation and resilience, to strengthen interagency coordination, and institutionalize climate change across public and private institutions. Again, from that panel, there were highlights of the importance of the youth inclusion in climate governance. You remember KIPRA came out strong, detailing its ongoing youth capacity building programs, and GAF also emphasized affirmative action as a framework to ensure that women, youth, older persons, persons with disabilities are meaningfully engaged in climate action. Again, in the same session, Nairobi Rivers Commission also presented its integrated regeneration project as a model for cross-sectoral collaboration, combining ecological restoration with job creation and social inclusion. You remember about the Climate Works program, which has employed over 45,000 youths, and so on and so forth. That particular day concluded with remarks from the Cabinet Secretary for Environment, who reaffirmed Kenya's position as a regional leader in green governance, emphasizing that climate action must be people-centered, inclusive, and transformative. Again, there was the Nairobi Rivers Regeneration documentary, which showcased tangible examples of how multi-sector partnerships can yield environmental and social dividends, setting the stage for deeper inclusions in subsequent days. So that was all about day one. Then day two, the sub-theme was on leadership coordination and devolved climate action. So again, it began with a recap just like today, and then there was a passionate address by Senator Mohamed Faki of Mombasa County, who reminded all of us that counties are the front lines of climate impact. He mentioned that the floods in Lamu, droughts in Turkana, and so on and so forth. And thus he emphasized that counties must lead in innovation and adaptation. He also called for stronger oversight, flexible financing, and harmonized county responses, stressing that climate governance must be institutionalized at all levels. Then we also had the first panel on that day, which was on county climate governance and financing, which explored the challenges in devolution, coordination, and youth engagements. If you remember the panelists, who included Dr. Tobias, Commissioner John Kioli, and Senator Faki, among others, that session underscored that while counties have developed climate plans and funds, the bureaucratic delays and weak oversight hinder implementation. And these discussions called for more robust inter-county coordination platforms, data-driven planning, and the involvement of youth in ward-level climate committees. So the involvement of youth in ward-level climate committees, again, repeated itself in that particular panel. And then we also had the plenary discussions, which discussions were centered around marginalized groups and community-based organizations still face systemic exclusion and limited access to finance. I think that came from you. And there was the urge for greater transparency, for self-reliance and partnership building, emphasizing that effective climate governance begins with empowered local communities. Then, if you recall, there was also another landmark presentation by Justice Oscar Ngote on advancing climate justice, which reinforced the constitutional foundations of environmental protection. Remember, he cited Articles 42, 69, and others, and the judiciary's evolving role in enforcing climate accountability. He also cited some of the landmark cases, such as the Lamu Port and the Turkana wind farm, as jurisprudential milestones, and encouraged mediation as a preferred pathway for resolving environmental disputes. Then there was also another technical session on the Nairobi Rivers regeneration, which provided practical insight into Kenya's flagship urban climate adaptation initiative. Presentations highlighted the integration of nature-based solutions. This came out strongly. For example, having green buffers, cycle lanes also, coupled with social inclusion measures, which were expected to generate over 40,000 green jobs and 10,000 affordable housing units. Then there was also a keynote address by Dr. Josephine Ojiambos, who celebrated women as diplomats of resilience, invoking the legacy of Wangari Maathai to illustrate how women leadership transform communities and policy alike. And that day closed with a panel on strengthening research and local systems for effective governance. Delegates concluded that inclusive, data-driven, and locally led action is the future of climate governance in Kenya. Yesterday, discussions around localized implementation, advocacy, and innovation. And this was a bit of a shift from policy to practice. It was centered around capacity building, negotiation skills, and community innovation. So we had the first session, which was Kipra-led. It was on policy advocacy and action skills, which introduced us to tools influencing public policy through research, coalition building, and persuasive engagement. And the delegates discussed how evidence-based policy can shape national and county priorities, particularly environmental and social sectors. Then subsequent panels highlighted community innovation for climate resilience. There were various presenters from TARDA, from Zitech University, from Slumrise in Mathare, the Ban Manufacturing, among others, who showcased scalable models ranging from clean energy technologies and solar-powered streetlights to flood control dikes and agroforestry initiatives. And these innovations demonstrated how community-driven research and partnerships with academia can enhance climate resilience, create employment, foster environmental stewardship. Then we also had discussions which turned to the emerging carbon credit market. I remember this came from the panelists and also from you. And the Kenya's Amended Climate Change Act in 2023. And participants explored how local communities can develop carbon projects, benefit from revenue sharing agreements, and access technical support. And that particular session concluded that youth and women must position themselves as co-creators and beneficiaries of the green economy, not mere observers. Then we also had the afternoon session, which was under community localized implementation sub-theme, which brought to the fore inspiring testimonies, you remember, from grassroots climate champions. So there were representatives from Mathare, from Kamukunji, Nairobi river zones, among others, who shared transformative community actions, urban farming, waste recycling, bamboo planting, and mental health programs that have turned once polluted areas to green and productive spaces. The speakers emphasized that language localization workshops after this, because there was a feeling that there were many other issues that have not been addressed so far. Of course, we are restricted in terms of, or limited in terms of time, but that is what we are also working around. So can I invite one or two just burning things or burning aspects that may not have been captured from the 3 days so far? Anyone?